Dear Psykill, have you ever used time travel to strike at the Guardians? Would a renegade with my wits not attempt to use such a tool? My most recent use of time travel involves Seculum Gamma, a planet where time itself becomes mutable. Crusher, Copter, Tank, and myself traveled back to Gobatron's distant past through their time portal. We arrived before the cataclysm that forced us to transfer our minds into robot bodies. Our mission was simple: find Leader 1 before he rose to prominence, and bring him back to a renegade-dominated future. We succeeded, locating the being called Luther Unum. Despite his protestations that he was but a humble archivist and not a great military leader, Copter bagged him and brought him back to the present. And what a glorious present it was, with the Renegades victorious and both Gobatron and Earth firmly under my heel. Eager to see what sights this brave new world had to offer, I set forth for Gobatron. When I arrived, I was greeted by several guardians and led to my throne room. I will admit to a small thrill at being waited on hand and foot by Smallfoot and Zemon. My Viceroy, Zero, seemed to have Earth well in hand, with the aid of the odious collaborator, President Braxis. Sadly for everyone, at the instant we went back, Scooter, Turbo, Vanguard, and Throttle were busy developing a new kind of force field with Nick and AJ. They were shielded from the temporal waves and had their full set of memories of the original timeline. They met up with Matt and Major Mo, the resistance leaders on Earth. After a few minutes of conversation, it became clear to the Guardians that this was a timeline with no Leader 1. Figuring the answers had to be on Gobatron, they convinced the Resistance to sneak the orthogonally displaced intruders aboard one of the thrusters carrying Earth's tribute to Gobatron, leaving only Matt behind. On board the thruster, they were neatly discovered by Slicks. Unfortunately, the Guardian slave Guidestar realized what was happening and caused a diversion, distracting my idiot lieutenant. He then sneaked back to them and asked if this had anything to do with the high-priority prisoner, Luther Unum, who had been captured and brought back to Gobatron.
It must be just might, Guidestar,
mused Scooter.
It just might.
Once there, they split up. Scooter, Nick, and Major Mo were to try to rescue Luther Unum. Turbo, Throttle, Vanguard, and AJ were to discover how I had changed the timeline so drastically. Major Mo staged a diversion outside the walls of the prison, convincing several downtrodden Guardians to riot outside its walls. This allowed Scooter and Nick to enter undetected. They found Luther's cell, but he continued to insist that he was a simple GoBeing, and not the great leader everyone wanted him to be. Nick expressed his disappointment, but Scooter pointed out that this was still early in his timeline, and that Luther had plenty of time to grow into a great leader. At that moment, they ran into Decker and Flytrap, and things seemed dire. Meanwhile, Turbo, Vanguard, and Throttle opted for a more direct approach, hiding outside of Gobotolis and waiting for a glimpse of me or my lieutenants. They spotted Copter and engaged him in battle, quickly downing him. Though he attempted to keep his beak shut, AJ tricked him into mentioning Seculum Gamma by in that they'd already rescued Luther and were taking him back to where we'd found him. Dolt, but not without his moments, for he had activated a beacon and summoned Zod, who menaced the Guardians as Copter laughed.